salted and they're kind of just draining on the paper towel. We're going to make our crust for our tomato pie. So I have my little fluted pie dish here. And I do not have a food processor, so I'm going to try to use my little, who's that? I'm sure y'all will recognize who this is by, but that actress that she has her own talk show and everything. Anyway, I'm going to use her little chopper thing and see if I can make my crust in that. We'll see how it goes. So we need about 3/4 of a cup of flour. I'm just using all-purpose flour. To this, I'm going to add 1/4 of a cup or half of a stick of cold butter. Instead of shredding my cheese for this crust, I'm going to drop in some cubes of it and see if maybe that will work. I'm going to try about half of it first, and then if I need to, I'll shred it. But you need 1.5 cups of sharp cheddar cheese, and just a little bit of salt. And we're going to try and mix this together, and we're going to blend it and just see if we can get like the little pea-sized pieces. It's getting there, so I definitely think we can add in our other pieces of cheese and it will be okay. Alright y'all, so I had very low expectations for that actually working, so I'm pleasantly surprised with this. Now we're going to add in just a tablespoon or two of half and half. We want this to turn from a dry powdery crust into like a moist kind of crumbly crust. Alright, so this is the point where that didn't work anymore, and that's okay because we got the main part of it. I can do this part by hand. So now we're just going to turn this out into our tart pan and press it all down and make our crust. We don't want to use too much heat from our hands and melt that cold butter. We want that to happen in the oven. Okay, so we have it all pressed down into our pan. Our oven is preheating to 350 and it's almost there. Now I just have about 5 or 6 slices of bacon that I've chopped up. We're going to spread this around. The bottom is obviously the cooked bacon. We're just going to spread this around and kind of press it into our crust. Once you have this gently pressed into your crust, this is going to go in the oven for about 20 minutes. During that time, we have our cream cheese sitting out, and we're about to pop our tomatoes in the oven as well to let them get started cooking. So with our tomatoes, they've been sitting for 45 minutes. We sliced them in just super thick slices and sprinkled them with salt on both sides, and we've been letting them just sit and get some of that water out of them. And now I'm just patting the tops to help that along too. I'm going to slide them off of this sheet pan. I put a piece of foil on the pan, and we're going to use this to bake them. We're just going to line them up. You don't have to add any extra olive oil or seasoning or anything right now. And they're going to go in the oven at the same time as our pie crust, but only for about 10 minutes for the tomatoes, because they will finish cooking once we get the filling and everything into the pie. And you need about 4 large, like heirloom style tomatoes. I know that we use that word heirloom loosely, but those nice like red and yellow and orange, all those good tomatoes, not the ones you find at Walmart. So into the oven for 10 minutes. So with our tomato pie tonight, we're going to have some chicken strips. So I just have 3 large chicken breasts down in our bowl, which was about 2 pounds. I'm adding some sriracha. You can use whatever kind of hot sauce you would like, but maybe like 2 or 3 tablespoons. And then I'm going to use a couple tablespoons of pickle juice. And this is just my marinade that I'm going to let them soak in for a little bit. I'd say at least minimum 30 minutes, but if you could, go about an hour or so, just to let that chicken soak up some of that flavor. So I'm going to cover this in plastic and put it in the fridge until we are ready to season it and batter it. So our crust is just about done. I'm going to go ahead and make our filling. My cream cheese, I should have taken it out earlier. It's not as softened as I would like it to be since I'm doing this by hand, but it will work. But we need 1 block of cream cheese, about half a cup of fresh basil. You just chop up, so I'm just going to chop it right over the bowl. As you can see, this is going to have some intense flavor. We need a teaspoon of marjoram, about half a teaspoon of thyme, and about half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Ooh, it's a little bit more to be all right. A little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt. We're going to give this a good mix. You want all of these spices pretty evenly mixed if you can. Like I said, the softer, the more you've let it sit out and come to room temperature, the easier this will be to mix. You can definitely use a hand mixer. So now that it's all mixed, we're just going to spread this on top of our pie. Just try to be gentle. So once you have it spread across your pie, you just want to take those tomatoes and you're just going to start layering them around in a circle. This is when it gets super pretty if you have the red and the yellows, like all the different colors. And there you go. This is going back in the oven for about 35-40 minutes. If you don't feel like you've gotten your tomatoes on there very well, you can put this pan back in under them as a little drip pan. So while our chicken is marinating, we're going to get a few concoctions going. We're going to make a little dry dredge station right here with some flour, some salt, and some pepper. Super simple. You could add more to it if you want to, but these are going to be super flavorful anyway. We'll make our wet in just a minute, but we're going to make our drizzle that goes over the top of our chicken strips also. So you want about a half a cup of olive oil, just a little squirt of hot sauce. You could also use some red chili pepper flakes if you want to, or cayenne, up to you. And add in a couple tablespoons of brown sugar, a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of chili powder, and about half a teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm just going to put our lid on. We're going to shake this. This is our seasoning drizzle that will go over our chicken strips once they're all cooked. We'll just let that sit to the side. And now for our wet dredge, we're going to take 1 large egg, about half a cup of buttermilk, a little splash of pickle juice, and again another squirt of our sriracha. If you don't like hot sauce, like I keep saying, you can leave that out. We're just going to break our egg and mix that all together. And now we have our little chicken station. Okay, y'all, so we've got our dredging station set up. I've got our air fryer turned on 375. And because I want no type of cross-contamination or anything, this is going to be our plate for our raw chicken tenders. And I've got a pan over by the air fryer for the cooked chicken tenders. And I'll show y'all both of them. But we're going to take our little strips of chicken, drop them in our flour mixture. We'll go in our wet mixture, and then we'll go back to our flour. And we're just going to keep going until we have about 4 or 5 ready. That's about all I can fit in my air fryer. And like this one is a humongous chicken tender. That's like, should have cut that in half. So our air fryer's been heating up for about 6 minutes. But just to get a good like starting heat on it. Just put our chicken strip or our spray down in the bottom of our pan. Oh, this one might not fit as many. Oh, this is my new one. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like we're only going to be able to get about 3 chicken strips at a time. This size, so that'll be okay. But just put them down. I'm going to give a spray on the top. I need another can. And we're going to close it and let them cook for about 5 or 6 minutes on this side, and we'll flip them and cook them another 5 or 6 minutes on the other side. Okay, y'all, so we've got our second batch of chicken going in our air fryer. And I know you're looking at this like, well, that's really, I mean, you should have just deep fried it. you'd be better off, because that doesn't have a ton of color. It doesn't look like it has a ton of flavor, but it does. So we're just going to add that next layer of flavor. This is that that oil that we had done. Now you do have to be more gentle with air frying batters like this than you do deep frying, but you still end up with something super tasty without all of that oil. And we've got our yummy tomato pie all done. Now we're just waiting on the rest of the chicken and we will have dinner. We have the last few pieces of chicken in the air fryer, but the kiddos are getting hungry, so I just wanted to show y'all how everything turned out. I told y'all it would be so flavorful with all of those herbs on our pie. And even though it's not a huge amount of cheese going into like the cream cheese mixture, it balances those tomatoes wonderfully. Definitely makes it all worth it.